Well, we are 2 minutes past the hour where I am, and so we'll just let others trickle in if they're coming. And we're so glad that those of us that are here today have found our way to this space with Tatyana to talk about, and I had the title of this called up on my screen 1 second here, Compassionate Effective Terminations, How to Let Someone Go with Empathy and Clarity. And Tatyana, we're just so grateful that you're giving your time today and over the next many months to share a variety of HR perspectives. And I'll just want to read your bio so it's here for everybody to hear. But Tatyana is a trusted HR advisor, leadership coach, and group facilitator who specializes in guiding mission-driven organizations through periods of change and growth. 16 years of human resources and organizational culture, including 12 years as HR director at Esalen. Tatyana brings a grounded, insightful, and approach to complex people challenges. So we're so thrilled and honored and grateful that you're here today with us. And just before we get started, everyone, I'm just going to ground us so we can spend some time together. So I just encourage you to mute yourself, other than Tatyana, and just put down pens or that email you might be typing on the side or whatever else is happening. And just find your feet on the floor of the room that you're in. And know that below the structure is the earth that we are dependent on and connected to so deeply. And trust that the earth can hold us in this time together. And open your hands, which is also an opportunity for us to open our hearts. And take a deep breath in and feel that air coming in through your nostrils and out. Take a few of those. And we trust that the goodness of the earth, the goodness of this gathered circle can hold all that we need it to. And that everything else that's happening in the world can pause for these next 55 minutes so that we can be fully present.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today. I hope you got your cup of something. That's well done. Hello, Reggie, and Francisco is joining. So before I jump in to get the presentation, so I do have a presentation. And thank you, Michael, for such a fabulous introduction. I'll take you with me everywhere now. I'm like, here's my presentation of what I've done. I wanted to go around because there's some of us, but just kind of go around. So then a quick one. I'll be managing time. And I guess I'll just call on you so then you can unmute then, is actually your name, your center and location, and one word or a sentence that comes up to your mind when you think of compassionate terminations. I will start with Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Swearet. I work at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. And when I think about compassionate terminations, a single word that comes to mind is transition.
Sarah Lynn.
Hi, I'm Sarah Lynn. I'm from Guest House Retreat and Conference Center in Chester, Connecticut. And when I think of compassionate terminations, I think of the word necessary.
Arwen.
Hi, I'm Arwen. I'm at the Rotnaling Retreat Center in Cazadero, California. And when I think of compassionate terminations, I think of maybe two words, like good communication.
I appreciate that. Garth.
Hey everybody, I'm Garth Patos-Meltzer. I'm the general manager at the Big Bear Retreat Center. The word presence came to mind.
Thank you. Reggie.
Hi, everybody, I work with Caitlin at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck. One word that comes to me is fair.
Thank you. And I don't know, Michael.
Hey, I'm Michael, the network manager for RCC. I'm also the former executive director at Five Oaks Center in Paris, Ontario. And the word I would use is responsibility.
I will go with Cara.
Hi, I came in late. What is the question?
Sorry, thank you for asking again. So the question is just kind of your name, your center, and your location, and what comes up to mind when you think of compassionate termination, a word or a sentence?
So I'm Kara. I'm at St. Mary's Swanee in Middle Tennessee. And a word, I'm going to go with presence.
Good. 2 for presence now. Francisco, are you able to unmute?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Francisco Burgos, and I am at Pendle Hill in Wallingford, Pennsylvania. And when I think about that question, I think about clarity.
Thank you. And Peter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter. I'm the program director at RCC. And if I'm being super honest, the word that came up to me when you asked is sweaty. I get sweaty.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's very, I appreciate it actually, because that's kind of how I start. Thank you all. I think I caught everybody. I think Pam is probably away, but if she's here, she's joined. And that's kind of how I wanted to. Are you there, Pam? Yes. What comes up for you? So please introduce yourself.
I'm Pamela Dominguez. I am with the team coordinator for the Retreat Center collaboration, and I am living in beautiful Valencia, Spain. What comes up to me whenever I hear compassionate is more of like transition and kindness.
So we have 2 for transition, 2 for presence, and 1 for each. I actually really appreciate it, Peter. It's like perfect. So thank you all for introducing yourselves and kind of putting a word into our container. And actually, that's all of this word. So we've had transition, necessary. I love the communication, presence, fair, responsibility, clarity, sweaty, and kindness. And so as I start the presentation, hey, Liz. We'll come back to you, joining from Big Bear Retreat Center. And I'll go through presentation, and I just wanted for technical pieces, Michael will be watching the chat because I won't be able to see it as I am navigating the presentation mode. But I'll try to pause after each slide, and Gloria's joining, welcome. The biggest piece for me that I wanted to start this, first of all, I want to acknowledge, we're starting this, at least the 6 months endeavor into a monthly topic, and also send the topics. What's a top of mind for you? What's urgent and important? What's needed for you for discussion in the future month? We can maybe switch the topics or bring them with you. I will leave time. That's my intention, is leave time at the end for Q&A, whether they're this topic related or not, and you'll have my information after. Feel free to reach out and pick my brain. That's for sure is available. So I just wanted to premise it so like at the end we're not running in the sense. But my thing was, I don't think, I kind of looked up and I said to myself, I don't think I've met any leader who said, just kind of what Peter was saying, I can't wait to run a termination conversation, or like, I cannot wait to do this. Or these are so comfortable, like I am yet to meet one. And if they think it's comfortable, I'm going to watch the narcissistic radar of that leader to a certain degree. And so you're going to get a very free version of Tatyana here. So all comments I attributed to me and my experience. So however that rolls. And so today what I wanted us to go through is how to talk about and approach these moments with clarity, empathy, and care. And so let me share what I've kind of prepared for us all. And slideshow. Okay. All right, everybody can see it. Just give me a thumbs up so I can see your thumbs. All right, great. So is this the end or the beginning? Oh, sorry, you guys. So we're just gonna slide back. There we go. So this is where I wanted to focus today, is the empathy, clarity, and care. And the agenda for at least today's conversation is we're going to talk a little bit about why this matters and why these conversations matter. The 3-step framework that kind of I've put together myself, and I have a little PDF that I created. I'm happy to share it as well. Just kind of, I'm very much, my brain is like, what are the 3 things, or what are the couple of things to remember? And that's what I wanted to bring to you as well. Some language do's and don'ts, and some examples of my own, but we'll see. I'll manage time as well, just so I want you to ask questions, talk through things, share. That's where I would like this to go. And then some spaces for questions and reflections. So why this conversation? Why does it matter? And, overall, sometimes, yes, there's a compliance piece, and that's kind of how a lot of people look at things a lot of times is, let's do this, let's check the boxes because it's a compliance and it's necessary. And I want us to have, and thank God this is all retreat centers. So for the most part, generally, the people that work in retreat centers have more of an open mind to be like, how to do it with compassion and kindness, as some of you mentioned as well. And so having that framework is what we're going for. Yes, there are compliance pieces, and each state could be a bit different. But the beginning and the end is, what is your intention for this conversation? And also kind of like, how do you transition? Somebody mentioned transitions. How do you transition the person? But also, how do you transition the team and the organization? Because the person was a part of this organization. That's, I think, is I'm going to touch base on that. The part, as you could see, there's compliance. So there's ripples in terms of culture ripples. The compliance piece is, there's boxes you need to check, there's documents, there's actually things, at least in state of California, that the more documentation you have, the better. That's just the end of it. However, when it's done poorly, that whole why this conversation, there is a lot of fear, distrust, and morale issues that you are probably going to have within the team. How you have these conversations matters because people are paying attention. You as a leader set the foundation through this. They're probably one of the most difficult conversations. Through these difficult conversations, people are paying attention to how you walk your talk. So you can say all kinds of things. You are about kindness, you are about presence, you are about communication, responsibility, clarity. Sweaty part, we all have it, so that's totally fine. And also, how do you do this actually? We always pay attention what people say and what people do. And when those are incongruent, this is where that morale is going down. You are getting distrust. It's a lot harder to build trust within your teams and the organizations than it's very quick to kind of break it. So those are things that I really want you to kind of reflect and pay attention to. And when it's done well, there's dignity and trust that remain. And when I mean when it's done well, when there is information, there's clarity. Why is this happening? And we'll go through some things. Why is this happening? You hold the space for the person and all of their emotional and mental kind of roller coaster that they might take. You don't take things personally. That's one of the things. And then how do you transition the team, the organization, and the person? Depends on the termination, other resources you can provide. Depending on the termination, how do you talk to the team and communicate with them of what has happened? What do they need to know? What they do not need to know? and how do you hold those boundaries? And also, how do you communicate with the organization? Whether you do or you don't, always remember that builds the culture. So the behaviors we do and the behaviors we don't, however that is all attributing to the culture you're creating. And these conversations are no exception. And so these conversations are never easy. They become, and hopefully you're not having that many, but as an HR professional, I've definitely had plenty where there's certain kinds, it becomes familiar, at least the space is not as scary. And there's always a one-off in every kind of direction that happens, for sure. So this is what I wanted to talk to you about, the framework that I kind of put together, where there's a 3 steps that kind of I'll think about is clarity, compassion, and care. And I spoke a little bit about it, is that clarity to me, and it's kind of like, if you remember nothing else from today, that if you could remember those 2 things, at least it's the clarity and compassion, is the clarity part is prepare for the conversation. Be clear why you're having this conversation and what do you have to back it up. So I've had plenty of managers who've come to me over my tenure to be like, this person is not working out. I need you to terminate this person. First of all, I am not terminating this person. This is your person. And second of all, I did not generally allow any manager to terminate a person just like that. It's like, what is your backing? What's been happening? What communication has been happening or hasn't? And generally, it's no communication has been happening to address things, particularly in an official way. And so before we get to this termination, I just want to step aside. When the person arrives, and if they're being terminated, or this, the change in relationship is happening based on their performance, that should be no surprise to them, which means you've had already several conversations about this, and you've been explicit to say that next conversation, if this doesn't change, will and can result in termination. Sure, there are some people that may be like, well, I didn't know that was really serious, but in your, at least in your competence, you could sit in that integrity to be like, the manager have had 2 or 3 conversations, and it's up to you kind of like what framework you create. Again, it's probably the 3s. It's something with me in the 3s. But the 3 is, for me, it's like you've had a verbal conversation. If it's a performance thing, you've had a verbal conversation. You've had a written conversation. And the written part, this is where it becomes serious. And it's like everybody is on notice. So you're having that conversation with the person saying, we've had this conversation. This is serious. This needs to be addressed by this time. And if this doesn't get addressed, or like we will meet at this date and we will have a conversation how that's going. That's clarity to me. You're holding your part of the bargain of saying, I will hold my part, I will show up, and I will follow through. That doesn't happen very often. People do this, it's a hard conversation, they get it done, and they just walk away and they're like, I hope this never happens again. Guess what? It happens again. And with some people, it happens over and over, where you actually end up having a termination conversation. But for it to arrive there for performance, you've had several where you're actually compassionately having a conversation to be like, hey, we've had conversations about this. This is not working. This is not the way that we've agreed this to change. And so our relationship is ending as of today. That to me is not out of nowhere. It's actually, you've held the person through, you've coached them, you've helped them through. That's that kind of a conversation. So when I talk about prepare with clarity, the reason, the timing, the setting. So another thing, I'm not sure, but I'm imagining hopefully nobody's done it, where a person just walks in and be like, you're fired. That has happened to me at Esalen Institute when now the managers felt like it. And I was like, no, you can't do that, actually. It's like, I will back up the overall culture and hold people and work with the manager who is an impulsive reacting manager and needs more of that skill set to be worked on and actually elevate that, as opposed to actually terminating the person because somebody just said flippantly, in the sense that they're terminated. And I have terminated people on the spot for being drunk, for being borderline violent and after the sexual harassment investigations. So that is also, that exists. And so it's neither one or the other is the right or wrong. There's different kind of categories. So have the timing and have the setting. Makes the space on your schedule. I can't tell you how many leaders squeeze that conversation because they're uncomfortable and we want them to end very quickly. When we're uncomfortable and we're talking through something, we're like, I just want this to go away. So I'm going to talk really fast and I'm going to put it between the 2 other meetings. And I know it's going to end by that time because I got to go. If you can do differently, create the space. It will go a long way. Trust me. If you can hold the space for the person, have a conversation, you have no idea how the person is going to react. But if you can hold the space and kind of move the person along back to that compassion through and the care through that conversation, sometimes no matter how long it takes, sometimes it takes a little longer than you have patience for. That is how you end that relationship. That's care. That conversation, that relationship is over. How you end things matters because that's what they're left. That's what we remember. Our brains remember the last thing or the last 2 days that happened, not all the great things you've done for them and coached them and tried all kinds of ways. They're going to remember the last conversation. And so if you can create that space and the setting, so don't have it in the room where they're going to come out to everybody if you can, you know what I mean? Or just figure out how you would have liked this. And if you can create that space. I'm going to pause for a minute. Michael, anything in the chat?
No, nothing in the chat. Everybody's listening so intently.
Is everybody breathing and listening? Okay. Deliver with compassion. And I have this direct, human, and present. Ground yourself first, just like Michael grounded us at the beginning of this session. Like, find a way, what's grounding for you? Is it a walk? Is it, I don't know, you have a stone, you have a cup of tea, something that's grounding for you. Ground yourself, first of all. Second of all, that direct piece is, and I'll talk about the language a little bit later. Don't try to minimize the impact. Don't try to color code it. Don't like, we're ending we're ending our relationship today, or this is your last day today. And I'll have a couple of scripts that I can read to you as well. But like, the direct part is this: we're not going to beat around the bush. We're not going to do it in the 5 last minutes of the conversation. And before that, we're going to check in how they're feeling and how their family and whatever else you know about them. And then you're going to drop the mic at the end. That's not direct at all. And the human part is, this is hard. You are acknowledging this is hard. Also, but always remember not to take it too much onto yourself. Like, this is hard for me because I've had that where a manager is terminating somebody and I'm sitting in the conversation and the manager is talking all compassionately, all about themselves, of how hard it is for them. And it's like, you just acknowledge this is a difficult conversation. It might be difficult for them to hear it. Acknowledge the other side and then stay present. The presence piece is, do not be afraid to pause. Pause is gold. Not from a place of marketing when they're saying whoever pauses, whoever talks first, whatever the sales thing that's whatever, lost the sale. Here is, you're present. You don't need anything to happen. This is where I go about preparing and having the setting and the timing. If you have your presence, and some of you, actually said that as well, presence twice, that's really important, is that's where practice of compassion comes in. You deliver a couple of first sentences and you pause and you let the person process. Remember, when our brain hears like, this is over, like we're breaking up, this relationship is over, work-wise or personal, we just block everything else we hear otherwise. So whatever you say, like if you're on an HR side and you start talking about what the transition or the paperwork or whatever they need is, they're not going to hear it. So pause, like in the best of it, of sitting with the uncomfortable. I know it's uncomfortable for you, but it is real uncomfortable for the receiving end as well. And so, but watch, there's different personalities. I've had people that I've terminated that I paused for a second, and then as the person was going off, I was like, we're gonna not behave this way. You are not gonna speak in certain ways. So you also, I really want you to, I've been in different situations. I've been in situations where I had to call on the safety people. And so, not to scare anybody, but you need to be mindful who you're talking to, who you're terminating, who your instincts are saying, how safe are you in this situation, who do you need to have by you, and how you need to carry this conversation. And it's going to differ from one person to the other. But at least within this framework, for those who are willing to hear and have a conversation with you in a calm, also very compassionate manner, that would work. For some that are not willing to have it, you got to just tighten everything up, shorten it, make it to the point, and escort the person out. That has happened as well. And then the last one is the follow through with care. And so the honoring, communicate, and support. And so this part is mainly how you talk to the team. Well, I mean, you honor them, but how you talk to the team, how you honor the contributions of the person, and how you support the transition. This, I cannot highlight enough how this sometimes gets dropped completely. So the person gets terminated for whatever reason, actually. And then everybody thinks that, okay, well, this is great. We're done. Like, this is great. And then the team is left in uncertainty, sometimes turmoil, sometimes they have personal relationships with the person, or most of the times. We're all working retreat centers, let's be honest. Like, it's all personal relationships, it becomes. So this is where this whole triaging and just like actually paying attention how you offboard, and it's back to that timing and setting. Make space. Schedule a space that after this termination, you are talking to the team. It's up for you to decide whether you talk to the whole team, you talk to members separately. That depends on probably the size of your retreat center, the relationships, but you have got to communicate. You have got to like lay eyes on people and see how they're doing. That touch, like how I was saying, how you offboard somebody and how much presence you have and space in that conversation and compassionately offboard them, it matters as much as how you turn then to the team, and sometimes the organization, depends on the individual, and hold space and presence for that. So it's like there have been terminations we've had where then we had to have like all hands meetings, for example. I'm not saying it's one recipe to the other. There's been some terminations where, and it's like sexual harassment investigation where I'm like, I'm not discussing this. I'm not discussing anything about this termination. I'm not discussing about this. Like, this is not up for discussion. So know when you can get more into conversations and willing to, and when you actually can say, I cannot discuss this part of this conversation, but I'm here, I'm present. Let me know how I can support you in your work going forward. This is kind of that clarity loop comes back around. You've got to be clear. What do you want the rest of the team to do, be kind of transition, and pay attention. Depends, on the person, how influential they were, what their relationship with everybody is. Pay attention afterwards, whether it's a day, whether it's a week, what's happening with the team. Because it's back to this whole team dynamics of the forming, storming, norming, performing. It's changing. When you remove a team member from a team, the team is going to go through that cycle, whether you're paying attention to it or not. And so I would rather you be paying attention to it and maybe even talking through it. And so they can adjust and have your support in that.
There is a question in the chat. The question is, could you elaborate on how and what to share with the team? What's okay to reveal?
A great question. Generally, what I would share is less than more. So I would share that, this person is no longer with us, actually. And so I will say, I will share less for sure, first, and not elaborate much. Because what's happening is here, as an HR director, or actually as a leader, you actually cannot, that's legally, you cannot share why you terminated the person, you personally. The person can go around and talk to people and tell them whatever they want, in a sense. And yes, you may think it's unfair, but it's like, that's, at least in California, that's the law, in a sense, because if you disclose that information, that you're actually breaching confidentiality. The person can share what happened with them and how they look at it. You have to hold a ground, well, I would suggest, to saying, this, we've tried to work things out and it didn't work. And so this relationship, we ended the relationship starting today, the best way we could, I would say that. This is not, it's always like, also for them, this wasn't an easy decision. I mean, for the most part, a lot of times it's not an easy decision, because you're still coaching the person, you're trying your best. And so this wasn't an easy decision, and it had to be made. And you can actually find some reasons, like, because they're impacting the team. Just think of how that's impacting the team in certain ways, and they might have their personal opinion, that's fine. You as a leader have yours, and you as a leader see where it was impacting and how it was impacting. And so it was impacting the business, or it was impacting our center in the ways that I don't want that impact on a lot of people. That's it, full stop. So in these conversations as well, if they're personal conversations, watch that you don't over explain, watch that you don't overshare. And that is a place of a leader, to say, most of the times, I cannot answer this question. Actually, I cannot, like, I legally cannot answer this question. I've said that lots of times. Or I'm choosing not to answer, like, I will not be answering this question. The person on the receiving side, whatever their stories. And again, sometimes it becomes personal. And so we start to rebuttal, and we start to come back to be like, well, that's not actually true. Watch for that. Watch for that hook. It's so easy. That hook is really easy to be like, and they could be saying completely opposite of what happened. This is where, to me, is walk your talk. You sit in your decision. You just make sure when you sit in a decision that in your heart of hearts, and your gut, in your feet, everywhere in your body, that you've made the right decision. Because if you feel that you've made the right decision, you can answer things from a different place than if you're wavering. Because the minute you're not sure, or like, so-and-so made me, that's, the best one, is, that will come across, and that would create ambiguity. And so that part of, like, the clarity, to me, to me, clarity is kindness, and all of that ambiguity is actually, the opposite of it. So if you're clear why this happened, and you're clear, this happened because, it was impacting negatively the team, the organization, the business, the guests. One thing, just like one sentence. And they're going to come back to you, be like, well, I disagree. And you can absolutely say, that's okay. We're going to agree to disagree. That's it. Again, pauses, presence will go a long way as well. Anything else? Is there a follow-up to that from anybody? Okay. And as I said, and also, it's like, the clarity is kind, and to me, it literally, and ambiguity is cruel. And so whether you're having the termination conversation, whether you're talking to the team, you're talking to an organization, think of clarity, not ambiguity. Because when you're clear, it helps people not to make up stories. And remember, when you're not clear, people will fill in the spaces and they make up stories. That's just how our minds work. And so that's another piece for all of us to remember. Let me see what we've got here. Yeah. So this is more like words that land well and ones that don't, right? So I talked a bit about it. So be clear, concise, honor contributions for the person. So it's totally fine to say in the meeting, like, here's the things that worked really well for us, and here's the thing that didn't, and this is why we're in this relationship. I would not say this in a sexual harassment investigation termination, for example. I just, leave it at that. Or if somebody is violent or close to being violent, to be like, this doesn't work, period. This behavior it's really helpful if you have a handbook. I found it is helpful to in the handbook to have behaviors that are just not tolerated. And so, for example, at Esalen, violence was one of them, or threat of violence. And I literally had to terminate several people. One was violence, not towards humans, but in the kitchen to like things, which was violent towards humans in the presence of that person. And I escorted that person. And then threat of violence was like somebody was threatening somebody, which in particular in this country, for sure, is like, that's no small thing, because really bad things happen. And so it's much easier. It's like, hey, this is the statement in the handbook. It's personal, it's not personal. This is your behavior that's not tolerated. No discussion. Pay attention to what behaviors you have in the handbook, or what behaviors you're tolerating and you're not. Remember, again, that's building your culture. So if you tolerated something from somebody else, but then you terminated somebody for very similar, same behavior, that is, people are paying attention that this person is okay for them to behave this way, but it's not for this person, for example. So that's also can create. So sometimes that's the handbook and certain behaviors in it are actually helpful. On a contribution and respectful tone. Watch your tone, no matter how triggering the other person is on the other end, no matter what you're terminating them for. Do as much breath work, presence, grounding as you can, that you can actually show up calm, present, compassionate, but also like very clear. That would be great. And then the don'ts is over-explain, sugarcoat, and debate. You're not there to debate the decision, by no means. You are not there to like go around the bush that I was saying, like, well, but this, apologize profusely. Don't do that. That's the case. If somebody's asking, again, when people are asking you a question or you're in that difficult situation, you absolutely have a right, and I would always suggest to you, take a pause to think what you want to say back. You don't have to respond quickly. Take your time. Okay, so I have, what do I have here? Actually, so it's, if you could put in the chat, actually, and we'll come back to one more slide, I think, or something, and then we'll come back and we can chat some more. If you were on the receiving end, what would you want to hear? If you can kind of think about it and briefly just put in the chat, that would be great. And we can take whatever, a couple of minutes. Yeah, we're still at 10:40. That's great. Let me see what we've got the rest of it. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna come out of it. How do I come out? We'll share back. Let me come back to you, actually. We'll do that. What do we have? Do we have anything? Does anybody just want to speak to it? Clear message, there we go. Clear message, no ambiguity. Care for the impact this has on me. I'm sorry I showed up late, but what I did here so far is helpful. Oh, okay. I'd like to hear reminded that this is not the end of the world and that I can move forward from this positively. That's a great one, Reggie. And I'll come back to, you said, I want a reminder. So the reminder, so in my tenure at Esalen, I did 3 layoffs. And after the first layoff, I was like, I don't ever want to do this again. And I don't wish this upon anybody. And then 2 more happened. And actually, it was in those conversations because the other terminations are sometimes depends on the nature of it, is harder, but actually it was those terminations or those change in relationship where I really try to find words to be not just compassionate, but just saying, yes, this is a big change, and people lived at Esalen as well. So it's like housing and, you know, work, everything. And like this change sometimes propels us to things that we would have never done otherwise. And it might sound flippant to people, and some people just kind of like, sure. But I actually can tell you, I've had several people come back after those layoffs to me, like find me, come back to Esalen or something, and actually thank me for that happened, that they did get laid off, how I did it, how I kind of coached the whole leadership team to do it, and having those conversations, because they did go and pursue things that they couldn't do it because they were too comfortable at Esalen. And so that really helped me in the future to have any termination conversation, knowing that this change is happening in my mind, honestly, for the benefit of all. I'm not telling them because they're like, thanks a lot, but really believing that, because I actually have walking examples of that. And so this is great. I suggest all of you read these, you know, as well as because it's like, as we can, like, we are the humans. Whether we had this experience as well or we are in this experience with others, and to see what others would like to hear is important. It's also asking at the end of the conversation, is there anything else you need from me? You know, it's like, is there anything, if there's a termination or layoffs or something, if you can find any possible resource to give to people beyond just unemployment brochure, then do that. And one thing that layoffs reminded me of, and like I put some, is actually having some scripts. So I don't ever shy away to be like, particularly if you're doing bigger things with your team, not everybody has the skill. And by the way, the skill is really hard to acquire, and it takes presence and practice and sitting in lots of discomfort. And for the most part, it's like, go learn another language, maybe. In this case, that's my take, at least. In this case, get your scripts. I don't shy away from reading. If you speak another language, what's helpful is to write that in another language. I do that for sure. I write myself notes in Russian. So when I'm having conversations with people in English, they have no idea what that note says. But that note a lot of times says for me to slow down, seriously, to take a breath, and actually has some points that I want to cover that I don't want to forget in the conversation. But when we had layoffs, and we created internal scripts for managers, and you know, some of them I knew the people that are going to be sitting with. I sat on those conversations, including actually with my CEO, who admittedly said his EQ was not very high. That's why he had me as an HR director. I said in those conversations to hold that space. He said the first two sentences, and then as the person spun out, I had the remainder of the conversation. And all I did, you guys, is literally just sit and hold their spinning, and then repeat the things that we kind of said. It's like, we will do our best to transition. Like, it depends on what the situation is, but I didn't have to find different words. It's just holding the person. He didn't have that capacity or desire to do that. He literally sat next to me, and I was the person talking to them. So if you're in those capacities, sometimes it is good to have another person with you that you know has some of the skills that you don't. They can hold that. That's fine as well. Have a script, have a thing. Let me see. Any questions right now? Because I can, you know, you could see it, like I can talk. So the biggest piece, I think, walking away, like for the end of it, in a sense, is if you could just remember clarity, be direct. Don't beat around the bush. Compassion, be human yourself and know there's a human across from you. And care is you honor the team. And so that's the part that I wanted you to at least remember. And I made like a little, actually, let me try to do it while, I made a little PDF for you, to like a little short thing. And let me see if I can just attach it in a chat for you. But it's mainly those three And if not, maybe we'll just, can we send it out afterwards, Michael? Or how can we, oh no, maybe I can do it right now. Hold on. It's in my downloads. Anybody, give me a second. Definitely put some more comments and read while we're talking about this. Hold on, you guys. Handout PDF. Yeah.
I also can send it out if it's not possible to put it into the chat. I have written down
I
everybody.
think it's happening.
It's happening. Cool.
Out of myself.
There it is.
So that's just the 3 steps. So anybody has
There was a question from Gloria.
1 warnings before termination. Yeah. What was the question?
Gloria asked, have people had to terminate folks who live on site, which I
Yeah.
definitely had to do that at
Yeah.
5 Oaks.
Yes, we have. And so what's the question after that?
Yeah. Gloria, do you want to expand on your question?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tatyana. You know, we all live together. We are volunteers as opposed to paid. So it's interesting because we all become somewhat of a community and we have friendships. So on one note, I feel like confidentiality can be very challenging, or like, oh, when I'm just venting to a friend about what happened. And I also feel like there have been multiple situations where it's like, oh, the majority of the team doesn't like this person, so therefore it's not working out. And so that's why we want to get rid of them. And yet there are other folks on site who don't have to work with that person and feel like, yeah, we should just keep them because they're a good part of the community. So yeah, I feel like it's really hard to define lines of, okay, well, this person doesn't work well with the team, but they might be like a nice person to live here.
Yeah, but yes, so I hear your piece about the whole blurring between community, work, and then when the community lives together, it turns, in my experience at Esalen, into high school, to be like with a bunch of cliques and things, even though on the surface and physically people look like they're over 20 years old. And so my piece about it is actually you are creating the culture by keeping the people that are just a nice person but don't work well with others. That's a choice to be made. But if you're there to create a community of living people together, and this is, by the way, anybody can actually chime in, please do. But if you're creating a community of people that are nice to have and live together, that's one thing. But you're actually starting, if you're running a business, if you're trying to make a difference and impact in the world by running a business that would contribute to the world, that requires how people interact with each other at work, like that is the primary thing. And is the primary thing why they're living there is because they're doing work there, or can they just live there and not work? So there's difference, because I know, I don't think Mama Donna is here, but there's different communities. So it was very clear at Esalen is that their housing only came with the certain jobs, actually not with all the jobs, only with certain ones, positions. And another piece for me was also how, if people could work together well, what they did actually in their, houses, places, I told them, like, you don't want me to know. And I didn't live on site for that very reason as well. I don't want to know what the employees are doing after 7 p.m. However, I need them to work well together. This is what we're here for, not and I'm going to say, not who slept with whom, who dropped, who broke up with whom, who went and, picked on whom. It's like, okay, if you can't figure it out together, then you will be brought into the HR office and we're going to have actually a serious conversation. Because if that's impacting your work, that's a problem, because your housing is tied to your job. So to me, it was always, well, for the most part, it's quite clear. And again, it's having those difficult conversations and people are going to have opinions. People had always opinions of why we terminated somebody and not somebody else, or why this person didn't have to be terminated. It's back to, Are you clear why you're doing this? And are you consistent as a leader as you do this? So those are a couple of things. And please, anybody else chime in what popped for you for that question with those who lived on site with people.
I was just going to offer, as a former executive director of a retreat center that had folks living on site, to have a very clear housing contract that ties it to their employment contract. And when it's not very clear, you can get into a very muddy, like, sort of tenancy conversation, at least in Ontario, where tenant rights are strongly upheld. So that was a hard learned lesson, and then one that was sort of figured out later. Sarah Lynn, you have your hand up.
Kind of the same thing as you, Michael. We had to move away from having anybody live here. So nobody has lived here now for 10 years. And honestly, we're happier for it. But a lot of it had to do with the mixing of tenancy laws and employment laws. It's very messy. And, often when you terminate somebody, if it's not a very good situation, you need them to leave immediately. But having people move out immediately is a whole different thing, right? With difficulty in finding housing and so forth. So we made a change to that. If we were going to do that over again, though, I would definitely say contracts and mutual respect agreements, so that it's really, really clear. This is the way we expect you to behave, even when you're off duty, because you're still on our property and you're still representing us, you know? So I do feel for all the people who, have the struggles with people that are living there, and now they also have to ask them to move. So.
Yeah. The agreements for sure. We learned the hard way as well, made agreements. I see Francisco hand is up.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I still have some employees that live on campus. And one thing that is very useful for us is within the staff manual, we have certain policies that delineate very clear those relationships as employees, as people that are either required to live on campus or invited to live on campus, despite that they are not required to. And associated to that type of policies, our termination policy also look into those type of situations. Like, I can tell you, 2 years ago, I went through this and I needed to invite an employee that was living on campus, and said, you should understand that as part of this conversation that we are having, it's not just your job that is being terminated, is that you must need to relocate as soon as possible from here. And I created a time frame that was not negotiable, but was generous in the sense of providing the person the opportunity to organize their belongings and whatever day they needed to move. But they definitely were asked to relocate as soon as possible.
Very good points into, and lots of these things is like we can be as preventative as possible, and we learn as we go. Kind of like you have one like that, and then you go, okay, we got to create some agreements and policies into like what's the clarity of this relationship. I put in my information as well. If anybody has any follow-up questions, or if things come up, please feel free. Heather, how we give 1 week to move out? Yeah. Exactly. So we had the same thing. If all goes well, it's 1 week. There's also the privilege, like it's not right on campus. Like majority of our housing was actually like a mile or 2 away. And so there's been some staff that's like they're terminated. They have a week to vacate the housing, but they cannot come on site. And actually for all terminations, I think eventually I did that, is because everybody needs the space. Everybody. The person who we would change relationship with, and the people that are affected by it. because whether we like the person or not, we are affected by it either way. And so that's the part. And Michael, yes, RCC retreat.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, it's all good. I just wanted to say that I just want to be mindful of our time, and our next time together is November 4th. And I think it's talking about effective onboarding. It's lovely to see all of you here with all these great questions. I actually took screenshots of all your comments because I was like, oh, these are actually great to have. So I don't know if you took photos of them, but like, this is great. Like Peter wrote, for example, like it's important for him to know what his contribution was, but also know like where did he delineate from the contract or the agreement. Like there's a very clear piece. For somebody, it's like, I need to know that it's gonna be okay, right? I think Reggie, you said like it's like the world is not fully gonna fall apart. And so all of those are super helpful. Michael, to you, it's lovely to meet you all, and I'm passing it off. Thank you for this opportunity.
So I just want to say a huge thank you to Tatyana. We're so grateful for your time and for kicking off this 6-month series. I sure learned a lot, and I think everybody would echo that. This has been recorded, so it will be available to the wider network in the next few days. And yes, onboarding best practices with Tatyana on November 4th. I do want to plug the retreat. It is coming up in about a month. It's going to be at Mount Madonna. I put a link in the chat, November 10th to 12th. I know a few of you on the call are coming, but there are opportunities for everyone to attend. There is a sliding scale. There is opportunity for some travel funds. So you are very welcome to come. And if you're feeling like there's blocks in the way, please email me and let's have a conversation. I'd love to chat. And if you haven't become a member of the RCC yet, I would highly suggest and welcome you to do so. And I'm happy to chat with folks about membership. You can find more about that on our website. And there is another community call tomorrow, which is rescheduled from earlier in the summer, which Peter will be leading on purpose and fundraising for retreat centers. So hopefully some of you can join Peter tomorrow. And it's been amazing to spend this time with you. And I hope the rest of your day is amazing, blessed.
I was gonna say, Peter, I was like, I will be at retreat. You can pick my brain.
And Tatyana will be at the retreat.
Peter.